Hello, welcome to Jason Owen Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you in my basement in the great state of Kansas. Today I'm doing a live stream covering what I've been watching lately. Let me get my list out. Usually I do these what I've been watching at the end of the weeks to cover shows and movies that I've been watching. I usually watch a fair amount on the different streamings during the week, and just wanted to give my opinion on some of the stuff I've been watching, give recommendations. A lot of times give you movies that or shows or whatever that I didn't like. That's pretty common as well, as you probably know if you watch my show. um, but yeah, I haven't done one in a little bit, so I have so many movies and TV shows that are built up that I really needed like a longer time. So I thought I'd do a live stream so I have more time to really cover a lot of these movies and stuff that I haven't talked about yet on the show. I know like Jacob Martin's been doing that lately, so that might be something I'll be doing in the future every like 2 weeks, maybe do a what I've been watching live stream. Uh, just to cut, unless I haven't been watching too much stuff, and I can do regular video. But yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit running a little bit late today, but I am here, and we already got some comments before I start. Garrett from Sound Lab Studios, Glass Onion is a really good movie. It's funny, we talked about Glass Onion on Mike's show the other day, in a hangout and chat, and we all liked it except for Mike. Mike was the only one who didn't like the movie, but most everybody likes the movie. It's usually the consensus. And it's my sister Abby. She's on break, but she thinks Glass Onion and Menu were good. Okay, yeah, those are two movies I'm going to cover in this what I've been watching. And Sophie, thank you, Sophie. So nice of you. Very kind words. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing well here on Friday. I just kind of got up and took a shower, and here I am. So, yeah, so I'll cover some stuff that I've been watching lately. First thing I want to talk about is a documentary. It's kind of the newest thing I watched. Is a documentary that came out actually just this year, just this January, and it's called Running with Speed. And it's a documentary covering kind of the history of video game speedrunners, which if you don't know, there's this whole community in video gaming that are called speedrunners, and their whole thing is that they try to break records on all kinds of different video games and try to get the fastest time to beat the game. And they've gone to such crazy lengths, and they do it by they find different strategies, different tricks to get through different levels on games. Also, they use glitches. I don't know how they do it, but somehow they find a way to get through a wall that you're not supposed to get through by doing certain things or skipping certain areas, and that allows them to beat the game so much faster. And so all they do is like that's their whole job is they spend all day just playing the same video game over and over and over again and trying to beat the best time. Anyways, it's very interesting. I think I play video games. I never try to speed run because I enjoy I enjoy the playing the game and exploring the world and enjoying the moments. Going through it slowly is more enjoyable than trying to go through a video game real fast. Anyways, but yet I find it very intriguing. I've been watching speedrunning actually for the last maybe 5 years. I would go on YouTube, and there's a YouTube channel called Games Done Quick, and they do I think 2 like charity events a year. One during the summer Games Done Quick, and they get all of the great speedrunners around, and they come and they do different. They play video. If you're not a video gamer, you're like people just sit around and watch people play video games. Yeah, I watch people play video games on YouTube. Of course, Twitch is like a big app that you can watch a lot of gaming. But I do enjoy watching people play video games and at times, and so it's a fun thing to look at if you're like video gaming and watch some really talented people. And they it's fun watching them go through a video game that you might like or something and go through as fast as possible. And they talk about how they do it, and they talk about the tricks and stuff like that. And it's kind of fun to watch. and a lot of them have fun personalities. So I do enjoy watching those game done quick organizations events, and they raise like $2 million, $3 million for charity during these things. So it's really nice. But yeah, so it was a really cool documentary. Really showcased a lot of the famous speed runners are out there, and talk about some of the video games. Like Mario's the most popular, probably. Like Super Mario 3 and Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario World, Mario 64. Some of the most popular speed run games are pretty fun. I watch them all the time. They're pretty fun to watch, and so they talk about a lot of people that have broken records in those. I think they talk about Metroid's another big one that has a lot of speedrunners. Anyway, so they talk about some of the big speedrunning games and the speedrunning records, and also showcase a lot of the great speedrunners. Anyway, so if you watch speedrunning at all or enjoy video gaming at all, I thought it was a really good documentary. It's a little long. It's like 2.5 hours. I thought it should have been maybe cut down a little bit, like to 2 hours maybe. But I thought it was a fun documentary to watch. And it's the first one. It's a first 2023 movie really I've seen this year. I saw it on video on demand. I'm not sure what other streaming you can watch it on, but hey, Garrett, nice to see you. Yeah, so covering that first. And there's some, like I said, I do like a good documentary. Though I have to admit, most of my documentary watching is sports documentary, especially basketball, because I love basketball. That's my favorite sport. So I watch a lot of basketball documentaries, and I do watch if there's a video game documentary. I do like watching video game documentaries as well, and also movie documentaries about the making of certain movies and stuff. So while I'm on that, maybe I'll just cover some documentaries I have on my list here. First one is a documentary called Shaq on HBO Max. Obviously, Shaq. It's about the basketball player Shaquille O'Neal. Uh, it's a 4-part documentary. It's 4 episodes of like an hour or so. And it's Shaquille O'Neal is, of course, being interviewed throughout the series, so you get a lot of his perspective. Though, even Shaquille O'Neal says he often embellishes on what happens because he likes to tell a good story. So it's like you don't know if it's all true. It's through his perspective most of the time. But they do interview a lot of other people that know Shaq really well, his family, and other players that played with him, coaches that coached him. Anyways, and if you ever watched, as someone who watched basketball all through the 90s on, Shaquille O'Neal was one of the most dominant basketball players I ever watched. He's one of my favorite basketball players. He was just so dominant. We never really seen a guy like him at the time that was so. I mean, not only was he like 7'1", I think, or something like that. He was at least 7 foot. I think 7'1". Also, I mean, obviously a really tall guy, but he was also very bulky. He was very strong, and he was able to if he got you in the paint, he just muscly. I mean, nobody could really guard him because he was just so much bigger than anybody else really in the NBA, and he could just back you into the lane, turn around, dunking on you. And like I remember watching and like just being so impressed with like how he wasn't the most finesse player. He didn't shoot jump shots like today's game. It's more about 3-point shooting and more ball. The big guys handle the ball more. They shoot more threes. They do more skilled stuff. But at that time, big centers, their main thing was just get the ball near the basket and do a hook shot or do a step back move or step forward move, whatever. Back in the paint, just go over the top of you. And Shaquille O'Neal was like the best. I mean, like I said, I've never seen a guy just back someone into the paint and just dunk it over him. And he was doing over really good players too. Just nobody was strong enough to guard him one-on-one. Anyways, and it's a very interesting documentary. Like I said, it's fun for me because I followed Shaq his whole career. He also had a very interesting personality. He did a lot of things, like he was into rap music. He did some acting in movies, not very good movies, but he did some acting on the side, some rapping on the side. Right now he does DJing. In fact, he came to Lawrence at KU's, what do you call it? Their opening, where they come out and play a scrimmage and everything. And Shaquille O'Neal was the DJ. He was our special guest. here in Lawrence, Kansas, doing some DJing or something like that. So he does a lot of different things. I got a couple here. So he says, "Did you ever watch the show on One Tree Hill?" No, that was some kind of teenage soap opera, I want to say, back in the 90s, 2000s, probably. No, I haven't seen One Tree Hill. And then, hey, Mike, nice to see you. Good talking to you yesterday, Mike. Um, but yeah, it was very interesting. Kind of following his career. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know about his life. Like, of course, his dad was like kind of a deadbeat, and his mom left his dad when he was young and remarried a guy that was in the army, and he, of course, had a lot of discipline for Shaquille, which he didn't like at first, but then he eventually realized that his real dad was a deadbeat. He's from, I think, New Jersey, I want to say, and his dad-in-law, Sergeant Harris, is what he would call him. He, of course, learned to really appreciate his discipline and try and make him a better player. And of course, Shaquille O'Neal, he was 6'4" by the time he was like 13 years old, and so he was just looked like a man from a really young age. And of course, he wanted to play basketball because he was so tall and so young. It's interesting. He didn't really wasn't that good until late in high school. Was really when he started catching on. I guess because he was so tall that when you're tall, it's hard. You have a lot of growing pains as a kid, as a teenager. You're growing, your bones are still growing, and so it hurts when you're tall, I guess, and it hurts to do physical activities. And so he kind of talked about that on there. And then in high school, he just totally dominated, and then into college and into the NBA. So it's very interesting. And his dad was in the army, so he actually was in Germany. He lived in Germany for like a year or so, and played basketball in Germany when he was in like junior high or so. He moved around quite a bit. He ended up in Texas actually his senior year in high school. He was playing his. They were stationed in Texas, and he played in Texas, and was a McDonald All-American from there, and then went to LSU in college, which I remember watching him. And when I first watched him, he was at LSU in college, and yeah, we all knew this guy was going to be something special, you know. And then he covered his career from Orlando Magic to Los Angeles Lakers, you know, playing with Kobe Bryant and all the issues they had there. Of course, they won. If you pay attention at all, the Lakers won 3 straight championships from 2000 2002, I think. Yeah. And I watched all of those, and man, they were so dominant those 3 years. And Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant player in the game. Uh, he was a regular season MVP 2000. He was the NBA Finals MVP for 3 years in a row. Yeah, no one was better than Shaquille O'Neal, and that was a fun team to watch because he had Shaquille O'Neal and he had Kobe Bryant, who was kind of a young player at the time that was really established himself as one of the great shooting guard wings that they're there, of course, and he'd go on to be legendary status himself. Um, but yeah, so it was a very interesting documentary if you like basketball. I would totally recommend it. And it's very interesting to learn more about Shaquille O'Neal's growing up, you know, and some of the struggles he had. And then, yeah, just his whole career, and obviously a very interesting personality. So I recommend Shaq if you like basketball. Yeah, Sophie, early 2000 teen drama. Yeah, One Tree Hill. There's quite a bit of those during the 2000s, I remember. But yeah, I never watched them. Yeah, so that's Shaq. Another documentary I watched, which was an ESPN documentary that's also on Disney Plus. I watched it on Disney Plus actually. It's called Dickie V, and it follows Dick Vitale. Again, growing up watching college basketball, Dick Vitale was I mean, I want to say he's the GOAT when it comes to college basketball play or for commentating. He was the color commentator for ESPN, and he had such a fun personality. Yeah, baby, you know, and he's so great, he's so enthusiastic, and you gotta get a timeout. He's a diaper dandy, and he had all these different kind of quotes and sayings that he had that were very unique to him, that he absolutely loved. I always loved him as a kid because I always loved his enthusiasm for, and I used to watch college basketball. Of course, I've always watched it since the '90s and still today. And he's still at it. He's like 80 years old, and he's still doing commentating for ESPN, which is just crazy. He's been doing it for like over 40 years or something like that. But it was a very interesting documentary covering his childhood. He had a hurt. He had an eye that didn't work, his left eye or something like that, which I didn't realize he had a bad eye that didn't work. And that, he got bullied as a kid because of that. And it was something it was hard for him to be on TV because he always worried about his eye. I think he eventually got some like laser surgery and kind of got fixed a little bit. So it didn't look so kind of weird anyways. And I didn't have to wear glasses anymore. But it covers him. Like, I didn't know about it. Dick Vitale is like, I mean, of course, he started out as a high school basketball coach. He taught like in New Jersey. He came from New Jersey area, and he first started coaching a high school team, and that wasn't very good, and turned them around to be one of the best high school teams in the country. So he was a really good basketball coach, and he went on to coach a couple college teams, and actually had really good seasons. Had one season where he only had like 1 or 2 losses or something like that, and so he kind of established himself as a really good basketball coach. He even coached in the NBA, which I had no idea. He coached the Detroit Pistons for like one season and got fired, I guess. Hey, Mike. I'm just on my third documentary I'm talking about right now. I got quite a bit of stuff to cover, but I'm kind of going over some documentaries I watched recently at the moment. I'm only on my third one right now. I got quite a bit to cover, so sorry if I'm taking a long time per documentary, but it's interesting, I guess, for me to talk about stuff that I enjoy. And but yeah, so it was interesting to learn all about Dick Vitale's, basketball, and then he got into commentating on ESPN for college basketball, and yeah, he's become the mainstay of that station. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, very interesting. Of course, a lot of interviews with him and other colleagues and coaches and stuff like that. I mean, he's a legend. I mean, like I said, he's been in the business for over 40 years, maybe 50 years or something like that. I mean, he's just been around so long. And it's some emotional moments because he had cancer just this last year, and he couldn't do any commentating for a whole season, which was devastating for him because he loves commentating so much that he so they showcase a lot of that, him going through those struggles of he couldn't like talk, like he had like some kind of throat cancer or something like that, but he's got over and he's back to. And man, if you haven't watched any college basketball, when he came back, there's been standing ovations at different places, even KU here in Lawrence, Kansas, not too far from me. KU's audience, whatever, gave him a standing ovation, and of course he's crying. It's very emotional. Getting over cancer and having come back to what he loves to do. So that was actually pretty cool to see. Him go through those struggles and come back to college basketball anyway. So yeah, Dick V, if you watch college basketball, very good documentary. Next one I want to talk about is Mickey, the Story of a Mouse, which is a documentary on Disney Plus. Obviously covering the history of Mickey Mouse, as obviously it's the face of Disney. It's the very first, not the very first actually, but kind of one of the early creations of Walt Disney that really took off. Of course, the Mickey Mouse. He had some other, I forget now. He had Oswald, I think, was the first maybe creation that he had. I want to say, but didn't take off as much as Mickey when he kind of invented Mickey back when they did those black and white silent shorts way back in the day in the 20s, I guess maybe started. He created the Mickey Mouse character, and then he had the first animation with sound was I think it was called Willie Steamboat or something, which was Mickey Mouse on a steamboat going down a river, and you can hear different sounds. And it's the first time they had sound in a animation. So obviously, that's kind of, you always see that a lot of times in the beginning of Disney animation is that Willie Steamboat part of that short. Anyways, very historical. But yeah. But it was a very interesting documentary just covering Mickey Mouse and also his impact on the world and his obviously very famous, most famous animated character probably of all time. Anyways, and it was kind of interesting, kind of covering like making one of the interesting things that it kind of talks about, and they talk about to a lot of animators and stuff that have taken over um, Mickey Mouse and all that. And Walt Disney did the original Mickey Mouse voice, if he didn't know. And then eventually he couldn't do it anymore, and they had to find another Mickey Mouse voice. And I'm sure they've had several different voice actors that come in and become the official Mickey Mouse voice. Hey, I'm Mickey Mouse. That very high pitched, kind of squeaky voice. I didn't do too good job there, but anyways, yeah, very interesting documentary. I recommend if you like animation, of course, or like Disney at all. I thought it was a really good documentary covering that. One of the interesting things they talked about is like he was kind of when he started out, he was kind of this troublemaker type character. He was always kind of, you know, I don't know, say he's kind of rascallion type character. But then they eventually were like, oh, we don't want Mickey Mouse to be this troublemaker. We want him to be, so they kind of changed him to being kind of more of straight-laced character that wasn't, causing trouble. So then they had to invent other characters around Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse kind of played the straight character, and they had to create other characters to be more of the troublemaker. So they created uh, as a Donald Duck. Now I'm forgetting. No, not Donald Duck, is it? Now I'm forgetting the name of the character, but the duck character that gets angry all the time. Uh, they create him so he can be, Mickey Mouse doesn't get angry, but he gets angry. And then they created Goofy, because Goofy can be stumbling. We don't want Mickey Mouse to be a stumbling, uh, goofball. So we get Goofy in there because he can become the goofball character. Anyway, so he kind of created these other characters around Mickey, and that's how they kind of did that. So that was really interesting to kind of learn about, the history of Mickey Mouse. See, Sophie. In school, us girls were not allowed to play rugby in school, so we made to pass a cricket ball around. I passed it a bit too hard and went smack into my friend's nose and broke it and felt so bad. Yeah, of course, we don't do rugby really or cricket here in the United States, or if we do rugby, it's very rare. Pretty rough sports, yeah. I mean, not cricket, maybe cricket's more like baseball or something, but yeah, I imagine that would have hurt. I got AJ's Movie Place. Hey, AJ, nice to see you guys and girls. Thanks for tuning in, covering some things I've been watching. See, another documentary is on Disney Plus again. Disney Plus has been doing a lot of documentaries lately that I've been watching. And this one is called If These Walls Could Sing, which covers kind of history of Abbey Road Studios, which is also most famous for being where the Beatles played a lot of their music and their studio. And it's become famous because of that. And everybody wants to play Abbey Road Studios because it's kind of a historical place now, because I would say because of the Beatles. It was called EMI Studios first, and then of course the Beatles had the Abbey Roads album, which they then renamed it Abbey Road Studios, which it's called today. And I've actually been there back in 2015. Went down to London and got to do a Beatles tour, and of course ended at Abbey Road. So I stood outside of Abbey Roads, took pictures, and was hoping to see a Beatle, but of course I didn't see any Beatles, or which would have been Paul or Ringo. I was like, man, that'd be cool if Paul or Ringo like walked out of Abbey Studios when I was there and I got a picture, but no such luck. But it's still cool to see the outside of Abbey Road Studios and get to take pictures and say I've been there. I walked across Abbey Roads and all that. But anyways, yeah, it's an interesting documentary. Of course, it covers a lot of Beatles, which I'm a big Beatles fan, so I really love the Beatles stuff and the interviews with Paul McCartney and with Ringo Starr, and the documentary is by Mary McCartney, uh, which is Paul McCartney's first daughter, I believe, with Linda McCartney, and so it's Paul's daughter doing the documentary because she was a little kid, you know, watching her dad, in Abbey Road Studio. So it's kind of interesting seeing her perspective on it. And she has a lot of emotions around it, I guess, and appreciation for Abbey Road Studios. But they cover all different kinds of groups that have gone through and big stuff that's happened. I liked like Elton John talked, and he had some a lot of interesting stories about. I think he was there even before he became famous, and he was just a piano player, kind of playing for I forget who he played for. I feel like he played for someone famous and was there. And Jimmy Page, they talked to Jimmy Page, and it was interesting. Jimmy Page was like a studio musician, and he was there when they were singing Goldfinger for the James Bond, back in 1964, I guess it was, when Shirley Bassey was singing Goldfinger for the movie, and Jimmy Page was there as a studio guitar player, which I didn't realize. So that's cool. Jimmy Page talked about playing on, James Bond soundtrack and all that. And so there's a lot of cool stories like that throughout. Obviously, if you're a big Beatles fan, it's a must like watch. That's why I watched it, because I'm a Beatles fan. But overall, if you're a music fan, it's the most famous studio in the world. So it was an interesting documentary to watch, and got to see all these different artists and their experiences in the studio. Sophie, rounders would be equivalent to baseball. Yep. I don't know much about it, but I've heard of it. I think the last documentary I will talk about, and I'll get to movies here, is called Sounds of Bond, talking about James Bond. There's a documentary on Amazon Prime, and it talks about the history of songs. James Bond is very famous for the opening song. You have to have a really good opening. You have an opening scene, and then you have the opening credits with a really cool song with the cool visuals. That's what it's kind of famous for. And so they talked to a lot of different artists that sang the opening song, anyways, and kind of go through the history a little bit of it, and who like started out writing for them. And I'm forgetting a lot of details, but it was interesting. They talked to who kind of came up with the James Bond theme song, dun 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 dun. Anyways, they kind of talk about that and where they came up with all that, and then the different songs, different artists, and how they came up with their song and how it worked in there. So if you're a James Bond fan, it was a real cool documentary. The only slight I give it, and no offense to anybody, but I'm not a fan of Billie Eilish. And there's lots of interviews with Billie Eilish, because she sang the last song for No Time to Die, which I thought was a horrible song. It's the worst song in the James Bond franchise. And I'm a big fan of the songs. There's a lot of great songs. Of course, Goldfinger is the classic. I love Carly Simon's Nobody Does It Better. Of course, Paul McCartney, Wings, Live and Let Die is great. Duran Duran has a great one for View to a Kill. And yeah, so many great classics in there. I absolutely quite love. Billie Eilish, I'm not a fan of. Like I said, every time they interviewed her, I wanted to fast forward it and be like, I don't want to listen to Billie Eilish talk. So it almost kind of ruined the documentary in a sense. But it's like, if I can get through Billie Eilish stuff, then most of it was very interesting. Like I said, Norn, I've talked to you about it. Definitely should watch. If you can get a hold of Sounds of Bond, you would like that if you're a Bond fan. Hey, Gareth, cool to see you here. Always love watching your videos and watch-alongs. Very funny guy, Gareth. Sophie, I call her Billie Eyelash. Yeah, I don't know if I pronounce her name right. Is it Eilish? Eyelash? Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, so that's another one. So anyways, that's my documentaries I've been watching. I wanted to cover. It's funny. I wanted to cover a show that I didn't really watch, but hey, Tim, I got Tim here. Hey, how's it going? Happy Friday. Yeah. I started watching the show on Disney Plus, but I didn't make it through it because it just wasn't very good. And so I'm going to talk about it just because I just thought it was interesting. It's called Night at the Museum: The Return of Kohlrabi. And I'm a fan of Night in the Museum. I think the first one's really good. Second, third one not nearly as good. But I don't know. I was interested. It's a cartoon, but it's like a very 2D like animation type cartoon. But it's like a movie. It's like a movie length, feature length movie that's on Disney Plus, and it came out, a couple months ago or something like that. And I thought, oh, I'll try to check this out. Anyways, and yeah, I couldn't get through too much through it when I was like, the big problem of Night Museum has all the characters that are in Night Museum, and the storyline kind of follows the main character's son. I think becomes a night watch or something like that, if I remember right, the story. And it seems like it's trying to hit the same beats as the first Night Museum in a way. And the thing that got me though is that it's obviously none of the actors that played the characters are doing the voices. So it's very off-putting when I'm like watching it, and then like, of course, obviously Robin Williams has passed away, so he's not doing the voice of Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. But still, some even the other characters, I was like, okay, that's obviously not Owen Wilson or whatever, and and so I don't know, that was off-putting to watch and go, wow, like none of these voices match, the real voices of the people in the movies. And it really felt like just a pilot episode to a TV show. Like, I don't know if they're gonna do a TV show, but I was like, it looked like it was just that kind of quality. It wasn't really good quality of a show, and so I didn't watch too much of it. But I just wanted to say, yeah, I tried watching it. I don't know if anybody else tried watching that show, or that movie on Disney Plus, but yeah, it just didn't work for me. I'm kind of going all over the place because I have my lists and it's not in any kind of order, but um, I want to talk about, I started watching some stuff on Apple Plus for the first time. Like I talked about Severance. It was like number 6 on my top 10 favorite TV shows of last year. Really good. And I already talked about it, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here. I talked about it quite a bit on my live stream when I did my top 10 TV shows. Anyways, but Severance, really good show. I recommend on Apple Plus. They came out this last year. Of course, Ted Lasso. I watched the first season of Ted Lasso, and it's because it's a huge show. It's winning all the Emmys every year. It seems like they've done 2 seasons. I've seen the first season so far. It's an okay show. Like, I'm not totally in love with it. It's not one of my favorite shows I've seen. It's an okay comedy. And I don't know, it'd be interesting because it takes place in England. So it's kind of cool because I'm like, oh, I got all these friends in England. And so it's kind of funny to see them kind of this fish out of water. Ted Lasso, which I love, Jason Sudeikis, who plays Ted Lasso. And I'm a big fan of Jason Sudeikis coming out of Saturday Night Live. He's on a lot of funny movies, We Are the Millers, and very funny, one of the funniest actors out there. Anyway, so that's the appeal of the show, is that you get Jason Sudeikis, uh, the lead in there, and he's funny in the show, and he plays this really nice, overly nice character. He's a football coach who goes to England to coach a soccer team, which makes no sense. But and I'm not a soccer fan, so I don't really enjoy any of the soccer stuff. But most of it's just him interacting with some of the other people, and also he's a fish out of water because he's in England and he doesn't understand all the England customs. So I don't know if anybody from England's watched Ted Lasso. I'd be interested in hearing their perspective, like how they perceive England. Anyways, it's kind of interesting to watch. What I love about it is because Jason Sudeikis, he went to high school in Kansas, not too far from I live. I think he in Shawnee, which is not that far from where I'm at right now. And so, and he's a big fan of like Kansas University, and I'm a big fan. So I love his Kansas ties, which I always like actors and actresses that have Kansas ties. Always makes me like him a little bit more. And I like that he talks about, and his character Ted Lasso is from Kansas. So I like that aspect, that it's a guy from Kansas that's in England. And I'm like, I'm a guy from Kansas and I went to England once. And I like to go back someday. Um, anyway, so I love that whole character, background of Ted Lasso. Also, which is funny, it's just a nitpick, but in the show, he's a football coach. He coaches Wichita State University football team. That's the coach. He was coach of that football team, college football team, before he goes off to England to coach the soccer team that he knows nothing about soccer. So, and the funny thing is, I graduated from Wichita State University. I was born in Wichita, Kansas. I grew up around Wichita, Kansas. Um, you know, and so that's my alma mater. And of course, if you know anything, I don't know if this was must be a joke, and nobody probably picks up on this, but Wichita State hasn't had a football team in like 30 years because there was a big plane crash back in the 70s, maybe 40 years. I don't know. It's a long time ago. I guess it might have been like 40 plus years now. I believe it was in the 70s. There was a big plane crash and it killed like almost the whole football team, basically. Wiped out the football team at the time. And Wichita State never had another football team after that. They've never recovered from that plane crash. Anyways, and they talk about doing a football team, but yeah, Wichita State it's the only big college in Kansas that doesn't have a football team. That's why it's known for not having a football team. So that was kind of funny to watch. And at the very first episode, it's like, oh, he coached Wichita State football. I'm like, there's no Wichita State football. There hasn't been one in 40 years. So I don't know if that was a joke for the show, and nobody. I don't know if you're from Kansas, you picked up on it. You're like, Wichita State doesn't have a football team. That's what they're known for not having a football team. So that was kind of funny to see that and be like, I don't know if that was a mistake. Jason Sudeikis knows they don't have a football team, so it must be a joke. And he's a producer on the show, but yeah, it's an okay show. Like I said, I like Jason Sudeikis quite a bit, but it's not as good, I think, as everybody's saying it is. Like, it's winning all these awards. It's a humongous show, the comedy, and I'm like, it's not as good as like The Office or Parks and Recreation or Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Or some much better shows that I've been on before. But I'll watch season 2 at some point and see if it gets any better. Let's see. Mike, the new Night at the Museum didn't appeal to me at all. It looked terrible and sounds like it too. Yeah, it's just not high quality of a. I thought it was like a movie because it's a movie length, but it felt like a TV show, and it felt like, oh, this was kind of. And I don't know if maybe kids would like it. I don't know, but it just seemed unnecessary to me as a fan of Night at the Museum. But a show I really, really like on Apple TV is called Schmigadoon, which I know is kind of a strange word. My sister told me about the show, and it's a show if you like musicals, because it's the show with Michael. I always get his name wrong. Michael Keegan Key. Michael something Keegan Key. I don't know. Very funny actor, and also I don't know. I'm not gonna remember the names, but I forget the name of the actress now. But Cicely Strong is the actress, and they're like a couple that are like on this relationship resort thing, not resort, but relationship thing, because they're having problems with the relationship, and they go off the path. They're like, out hiking in the woods, learning to team build or something, and they go off the path and they go across this bridge, and they go through this like fantasy world called Schmigadoon, which is this fancy town that doesn't exist. And they basically are a musical, and it kind of like goes back to the old musicals of, especially Music Man. It really resembles Music Man. If you ever seen the movie Music Man, old musical, it's that kind of style of music, and which I really enjoy. I'm a big fan of musicals, and I like Music Man. There's a little bit of Sound of Music in there, and there's a little bit of a Showboat, I think, another musical that's kind of resembling anyway. So they don't realize they're in this town that is like, and they can't get out. They try to cross the bridge and they can't get out, and the whole thing is like, you can't leave until you fall in love again, or you have to go across the bridge with somebody that you love, and they're no longer in love, so they can't get out of this town, so they have to live in this town trying to figure out how to get out. And it's a really funny movie or show. It's like one of the best shows I've ever seen, because I love musicals, so it like fit me perfectly. And every show has several musical numbers, and the musical numbers are actually really good, which is hard to do. It's hard to do that many good musical numbers, new ones, and they're very catchy. But and it's a very funny show, and I love how the story plays out. How they're trying to, it's a musical, but Michael Key's character doesn't know musicals, so he doesn't understand the storylines, while Cicely Strong, she watches musicals, so she kind of buys into the musical, and she understands the storylines that are coming, and she's like, can predict what's going to happen next, because it kind of follows the formula of a musical. Yeah, and it's only 6 or 7 episodes long. It's not very long, I don't think, show. But man, I love the character arcs, and there's all different kind of character arcs within the show that happen, and how it ends in like a really good way, and it's actually kind of sweet at moments, as well as this couple is trying to fall in, well, they kind of break apart, but then they fall back in love. And I don't know, it's a really good show. I hope they do a second season. I'd love to see different other musical styles. I'd love to see them to do more like a Chicago maybe style at some point, or I don't know. I think they're going to do another season, but I don't know if anybody's seen Schmigadoon out there can give any thoughts on that. I thought it was a really fun show on Apple Plus. Anyway, so all right. So now we get to, I think, some more movies. Well, different things, but like I said, this is kind of out of order, but I saw a movie on Netflix called Slumberland. Um, this is a I can't remember anybody else except for Jason Momoa is the big star of the show. I say star; he's more of a co-star of the show, but the big name is Jason Momoa. And it's this weird kind of drama about this girl who's I'm trying to remember now the story, but I think her parents die or something. Her dad dies. I think she lives with her dad. Yeah, and her dad like dies, and so she has to go live with her uncle, who she's never like known before. And so it's very sad. Of course, she misses her dad and all that. Had a real close relationship with him, and he told her that he can like she can like there's like this fantasy land, and when you sleep, that's what's called Slumberland. When she goes to sleep, something magical happens, and she all of a sudden she's in this world of dream world, and she can like travel through the dream world, and she's trying to find her dad in the dream world. I know I'm already confusing myself talking about the plot, but something about she's trying to find her dad in the dream world or something like that. And she comes across Jason Momoa, who plays like this kind of fantasy character. It's got horns, if I remember right, and he's kind of weirdly dressed, and he's like this half man, half something else, and he goes through the dream worlds, and he lives in the dreamland, Slumberland, and he's like a thief. He goes in people's dreams and steals things or something. Anyways, so he calls himself like a pirate and a thief, and anyways, and this might be confusing. I'm confusing myself talking about it because it's hard to explain, but anyways, he kind of helps her out, and they're trying to find a map or something. I don't remember, but needless to say, I thought it was a really terrible movie. I know Elliot from IMO Reviews has reviewed it. I don't know how many people I haven't seen too many people talk about it. It was big this last year. It came out just this last Christmas season, I think, and so it was supposed to be like a big movie off Netflix. And I thought it was really boring and complicated, and didn't really care. And Jason Momoa, he plays Jason Momoa, he plays Aquaman. He's this huge guy. He plays more action roles, but this was a total comic role. He was total kind of a silly character, a very comedic type character. And Jason Momoa was so miscast. It was one of the worst castings I've ever seen. Like watching it, Jason Momoa trying to be funny was like cringy. I'm like, oh my God, like Jason Momoa, he can be funny here and there, but he's not a comedic actor, and I just don't find that he fit this character. His character is a very overly, comedic character. I feel like, like a Robin Williams would have been great in this role, or Mike Myers. Like it takes that kind of a really funny actor to really, I think, fit this role that he had in this movie. And so, yeah, to me, it was like one of the worst performances. I put it in my top 5, my worst 5 performances of the year when I did that. When I did my whole Jason the Old Millennial Awards, it was definitely in the running for one of the worst performances of the year. And Jason Momoa is a fine actor when he does, Aquaman or something, or Game of Thrones. He was great in. But man, it just didn't work for me. Trying to be a silly character and try to be just funny all the time. I don't know, but yeah, Slumberland, I give a really bad review. Rich Strickler got a really good question here. Hey, Rich, glad to see you. The Oscar nominations come out next Tuesday. Okay. Any predictions? Another interesting year for me. I know. I'm kind of the same way. Predictions for the Oscars. That's a really good. That'd be a good video to make for sure. To give my thoughts on it, I think the top 3 movies, the 3 movies that are kind of the front runners for Best Picture right now are Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Banshees of Inisherin, and The Fabelmans. Those are 3 movies I think they'll watch for. I think those 3 movies will definitely get nominated for Best Picture. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is really the front runner for Best Picture right now. That'll be my pick for Best Picture, is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think it really did really well just recently at the Critics' Choice Awards. I think it won the Best Picture. Or they don't have Best Picture. I think maybe Best Ensemble or something like that. Best Director. No, they don't. Yeah, it does. Never mind. Yeah, Best Picture, Best Director. Ki Kwan is sweeping all the Best Supporting Actor so far. I mean, he won the Golden Globe, he won the Critics' Choice, and he's projected to win all the awards all the way up to the Oscars. Michelle Yao won the Golden Globe for best, I don't know, was it best comedy or musical, and she was nominated. I think she might have been nominated, but I like to see her. Hopefully, she'll get nominated, but I don't know if she can win. She might, but she's in the running there. Anyway, so everything everyone wants is kind of the movie to watch, I think, right now in the award season, and it'd be interesting what happens. Especially SAG will be very important to see where everything falls out, because Golden Globes, the problem with Golden Globes is they separate drama and comedy musical, so some movies and actors don't go head to head. So we'll see what happens there. Anyways, but yeah, those are the three. Fablemans won the Golden Globe for best drama, and Spielberg won best director at the Golden Globe. So Fablemans had a pretty good hit there. I think The Banshees of Inisherin won best comedy or musical, and Colin Farrell won best actor in a comedy or musical. So they got a lot of momentum there from the Golden Globe. So yeah, those are the three big ones I think right now. But you never know; there might be a movie that kind of comes out of nowhere and gets a lot of momentum late in the season, because the award season is so long. You start out Golden Globes and you think, oh, this is the winner, and then all of a sudden you get to the SAGs and the BAFTAs and somebody else starts winning. I can think of, like, we all thought The Social Network was, like, back in 2010 or whatever that was going to be the winner. It was getting all the momentum. It was winning awards, and then all of a sudden, King's Speech started winning late in the award season, and then King's Speech ended up winning the Oscar for Best Picture. Last year, I thought Power of the Dog was going to be the winner, but then Coda kind of came out of nowhere and kind of overtook it at the very end and won Best Picture. So it's kind of interesting when that happens. But I really think those are the three movies that are going to win Best Picture. One of those three. Outside of that, I mean, a lot of people think like Top Gun Maverick will probably get in there, which would be interesting because you don't usually get the big blockbusters into Best Picture. So that'd be good for the show, I think, if they can get Top Gun Maverick, the one of the most popular shows, movies of the year in. So hopefully that gets in. Avatar, Way of Water, I think a lot of people think that will get in. Again, it's the biggest blockbuster of the year, so it'd probably be good. It'll get more viewers if those two movies can get in Best Picture, which a lot of people think that might get in there. Movie called Tar with Cate Blanchett is, I think, will probably get in there for Best Picture. A lot of talks about that movie. I think Elvis will probably get in there. It's been doing pretty well. Austin Butler won the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Drama. So there's a lot of buzz there about Elvis. I think will get in there. I don't know. Then it gets a little bit harder to kind of predict. Pinocchio, the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio could get in there. People are talking about that movie. I'm not for sure if it will or not. Babylon is talked a lot about, probably getting in there as well. Again, I don't know if they're going to do 10. I forget if they're doing 10 slots. If they do 10 slots, there's a couple other movies I'm not sure what else will get in. But yeah, so some of the Best Picture nominees that I'm pretty sure will get in there. Obviously, Best Actor, it's between Brendan Fraser, Austin Butler, and Colin Farrell. Like I said, Austin Butler and Colin Farrell won the Golden Globes. Brendan Fraser won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Actor. And I think everybody's rooting for Brendan Fraser because he's having this comeback story. Like, he kind of disappeared from movies for a while, and he gave a really great speech at the Critics' Choice Awards this last week. Very emotional, so it'd be great to see him go on and win. And right now, I think Brendan Fraser is kind of the front runner to win it. We'll see. He lost against Austin Butler at the Golden Globes, but I was kind of figured because he has there's some animosity between the Golden Globes and Brendan Fraser, so it was kind of predicted that he's going to lose that one. But so we'll see in the SAGs. If Brendan Fraser wins the Screen Actors Guild, I think he's definitely going to be the front runner for the Oscar. So we'll see between those three. Best Actress, I think definitely Cate Blanchett and Michelle Yeoh are the two front runners in that. Cate Blanchett, and I haven't seen Tar yet, but everybody says she's really good in Tar. and she's one of the best actresses working today. I definitely think she's a great actress, and she's already won a Best Actress for uh, what's it called? Now I forget the name of the movie. I want to say it's called Blue something. But she won the Oscar for Best Actress for that. She won Best Supporting Actress, I believe, The Aviator. She won the Best Supporting Actress, so she's got 2 Oscars already. Blue Jasmine. She won the Oscar for Best Actress for Blue Jasmine. So she's already got 2 Oscars. Will they give Kate Blanchett a third Oscar? Um, she's definitely deserving. I can see her winning the third Oscar and putting her up there as one of the great actresses of all time. But part of me would love to see Michelle Yeoh get in there because she's never been nominated before, and she's been in the business for a long time. And I've been a fan of Michelle Yeoh since, since Super Cop with Jackie Chan, and she was in Tomorrow Never Dies, and a James Bond movie. And she's been in kung fu movies for a long time, and she's a really good actress, I think. And so that'd be fun to see her win. But I think it's probably between those two for Best Actress. Anyways, just to give you some thoughts. Like I said, Ke Huy Quan is going to probably win Best Supporting Actor. He's dominating that. Best Supporting Actress right now, Angela Bassett's won the Golden Globe and the Critics' Choice. So Angela Bassett for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is really the front runner for Best Supporting Actress right now. So I'll be interested to see if she keeps winning in the SAGs and the BAFTAs. She's definitely going to be nominated, I would say. And I think Supporting Actress is kind of a weak category, so I don't know what else. You got Jamie Lee Curtis from Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's some talks about her. And I forget who else. Michelle Williams. I don't know if she's, I think, maybe in the running for Fabelmans. So those are some of my thoughts of some of the major awards. There's more I could talk about, but very good question, Rich. Of course, I love watching the Oscars. If you can tell, I have a fairly good knowledge of the Oscars and the history of the Oscars. I've done a lot of research on Oscars, and I usually watch the Oscars every year, even though I don't like the movies. You never know. You watch it, and Will Smith slaps Chris Rock out of nowhere, and you go, "Oh my God!" Like I saw something historical. Like I've never seen an award show where someone gets slapped. So those things happen at award shows that you watch it to go, I hope something crazy happens, and you can talk about it for years to come. But it's interesting just to see what movies are kind of considered the great movies and the performances, and I like to see who's considered the best of the year. And so I still watch the Oscars, even though I usually don't agree with what they pick, anyways. But yeah, anybody else out there have any predictions? I'd love to hear it. Love talking about the Oscars. It's definitely something I'll talk about when we get into the Oscar season. It's since the nomination next week. I might have to talk about next week, in fact. But yeah, thanks for the question, Rich. Enjoy talking about that. All right, next movie I'll talk about is the Disney animation movie that came out this last end of the year, called Strange World. Lots to talk about Strange World. It's been getting a lot of bad buzz, of course. It really bombed at the box office, getting pretty low numbers. And there's different reasons why it's been talked about. It's been somewhat a controversial movie in a sense that if you're not in the conservative, Republican, Christian worldview, as I am, there's definitely been a lot of talks about Strange World because there's one of the main characters is gay, and it's like the first gay character I think we've gotten in a major, animation or Disney animation movie. And so that was a bit controversial amongst that crowd. I know a lot of people think that a lot of people didn't watch it because of that. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's one of the talks of the movie. A lot of other people believe that Strange World didn't do well because it wasn't marketed well. Um, that might be true as well. I don't know. To me, I was kind of interested in the movie when I first heard about it, and I was like planning on watching it. And then it got all this bad buzz, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm not that excited to watch it." But of course, it came on Disney Plus, so I'm like, "All right, I'll watch it. It's on Disney Plus. See if it's as bad as everybody says it is." And overall, yeah, it's not a very good movie. And for me, it's just not that funny of a movie. I just felt like and the character is just not that interesting. It just didn't have a very memorable character in there, and the whole coming into this, they go there. It's this, of course, fantasy world where they it begins with this father and son, and the father is an explorer, and they're out exploring. They never settle down, I guess. And the son finds a plant that can provide energy, and he says, "Hey, let's just settle down, and we can use this plant to, build a society." And the dad decides to just leave the family, which is like a real, real bonehead mood of, I mean, really jerk move to leave your family because you want to go explore. And so he like leaves the family, and then the son kind of creates this whole town, this whole city, anyways, and becomes a farmer, anyways. And then, but then there's problems. I forget exactly what it is, but they have to go exploring to find the answer, I guess, to why the plants are having problems or whatever. Uh, and so he goes out exploring and then finds his dad, of course, and that's not too much spoiler. You see it in the trailer, I think, but he finds his dad, and they find out that the whole. Anyways, I guess I won't spoil it, but they kind of discover what the problem is, and I don't know. It just wasn't that interesting of a storyline. Characters weren't that funny or memorable or interesting. Uh, yeah, and there's no villain. Like you go through the whole thing, and you're like, there's really no great villain, which I think a good animation movie. It's nice to have a Jafar or a Scar, to go against in those kind of movies anyway. So I don't know, it just lacked anything, and it felt like to me like not very original. It felt like a Jules and Verne's Journey to the Earth. It was kind of that where they go into they explore this new area that they have been in, and there's all these different kind of creatures, and and it's very dangerous new areas. So it felt like not that original of a storyline. Like it was just Journey to the Center of the Earth, basically. And I don't know, I wasn't interested in the new world, like the different creatures and stuff. And I don't know, the color scheme was kind of off to me. It was very bright colors, but I don't know, it just didn't interest me. Yeah, it was just not that interesting a movie, kind of a boring movie, animation movie, nothing. And it's hard because Disney Animation, you have such a high standard for Disney Animation, um, because they're the most historic animation studio, and there's been so many great movies coming out of that studio that for me, it's like you have a high standard of like, if you're not good, if you're not memorable, if you don't provide, something really out of this world, you're just a mediocre movie. And that's just what happened with Strange World. I think, yeah, it wasn't marketed well, maybe, but also didn't have it wasn't a good movie. It didn't have good word of mouth. And so it really killed. And like I said, Disney, it's such a bad year for Disney. Of course, they changed CEOs. So I'm hoping they can turn things around. I thought Star Wars was pretty bad last year. Marvel was pretty bad. And then the Disney animation was pretty bad. Turning Red, I thought was terrible. It's Pixar. Then Lightyear really bombed at the box office, and I didn't love that movie. It was okay. Lightyear, it wasn't as bad, I think, as people were saying it was, but wasn't great. Not high, very low tier Pixar, I would say. Lightyear. And then we end with Strange World, which definitely was one of the worst, I think, Disney movies I've seen. So yeah, really bad. Hopefully they can really turn around this year, 2023. See, Mike, Strange World. I like the animation personally, and great to see Jake Gyllenhaal in a Disney movie, but it was very bland. Yeah, I would say that's pretty much, yeah, it was bland, and I didn't like any of the characters. Yeah, it was just a bland movie. It just wasn't funny. It wasn't interesting story. Wasn't interesting characters. I don't know. It's hard to make a good movie, and that just, you have to have good writers, and I just didn't have the right writers or director, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, it was definitely a miss for me. Strange World. I'll talk about a show on Netflix that I finally got around to watching, called Man versus Bee, which, I don't know if you've ever heard this, interesting kind of idea for a show. And it's, I'm going to forget his name, but the main actor, he's an English comedic legend, who did Mr. Bean. Roland, I believe his name is Rowan. I'm forgetting his name. I'm sorry, I don't have them written down. I just have the movies written down and shows. But he did like Mr. Bean back in the day, and he's one of the great physical comedic actors. Anyways, and he's the main character in the show, where he's a house sitter and he goes and sits in this like millionaire's house, and it's like his first house that he's got to sit at, and there's all these rules that he has to abide by, and there's a dog in there and he has to take care of, and it's supposed to be, there's all these expensive, the whole thing is that there's all the expensive like paintings and artwork and all these things. And of course, the whole thing, if you know Rowan Atkinson, thank you. I knew I couldn't remember it, but Mike said it here. I saw a review, Man vs. Bee. Rowan Atkinson was great. The show was an easy watch, even with how stupid it was. Yeah, if you know Rowan Atkinson at all, like Mr. Bean is like his like maybe greatest creation. Uh, it's very silly slapstick fiscal humor, and his whole humor is really just, I'm gonna get into a situation where I'm going to ruin things. I'm a whatever anything I've seen him in, I feel like it's all about if there's something expensive, I'm gonna break it, and that's gonna be the humor of me breaking it, and then going, how am I gonna fix this situation? I broke this expensive thing, and I need to somehow fix it, and that's the comedy of him trying to put the thing back together before the people get back. That's kind of his humor throughout that I've seen. But yeah, I really liked Rowan Atkinson. Anyway, so the show is very interesting. It's like every episode is like, I want to say like 15 minutes long or 10 minutes long. Uh, but so it's weird. Like episodes are very, very short. But if you put all the episodes together, it would make like an hour and a half movie or something. I don't know, something crazy like that. Like, so it felt like a movie that they just cut into like 15-minute segments or something like that, which is very interesting. Like they could have just made a movie called Man vs. Bee, and you could have seen it like that. But it was interesting watching it because it's very, like Mike said, very easy to watch because very short episodes. So you can just go, I'll watch, a couple episodes, and then next day I can watch a couple more. And so you can get through it pretty quickly and span it out if you want, or you can binge watch it and watch it in one day if you want to. But yeah, and the whole thing is he's house sitting, and then a bee shows up, and he's trying to kill this bee. And as he's trying to kill the bee, he's ruining all this expensive artwork and stuff like that. And then he's trying to fix all these things that are broken. There's one really funny episode I liked where some thieves break into the house, and he's sleeping, and they break in, and he gets up and he thinks he hears something, but he doesn't see them or whatever, and he goes to the bathroom or something like that, and he's walking around, and the thieves see him, and so they're hiding from him. And so it's kind of funny, like he has no idea there's these thieves trying to steal like this artwork, and he's just walking around, and he's trying to kill this bee, and he's yelling at the bee because he doesn't know the thieves are there, but he's just yelling at this bee like, I'm going to kill you. And he's talking to the bee, but the thieves think that he's talking to them, so they're like, oh my gosh, this guy's a maniac. And so that was maybe the funniest scene in the whole show. But it's a lot of that kind of humor, and it's kind of cringy a little bit. Like Mike said, it's really stupid. I mean, you just know it's like, oh my gosh, he's going to break this very expensive thing, and he does, and you're like, oh my god, he did it, and now he's trying to put it back together. Yeah, very silly, very stupid, but I really enjoyed the show. I thought it was actually pretty funny. Rowan Atkinson still, even he's getting up there in age, he's still doing really funny physical work, and it actually has a really interesting storyline. Like at first you're thinking, how's this guy going to get out of this? Like he's going to go to jail because he just ruined this millionaire's house. But they actually found an interesting way to bring it around. He also has a story he has an ex-wife or something like that, and he has a daughter, and he calls them on the phone, and he wants to see her. And so there's actually this somewhat of emotional idea behind it as well, that he's trying to get back on his feet after the divorce, and he wants his daughter to come visit him because there's problems there, and but him ruining this house and going to jail basically is going to ruin that relationship. But anyways, it was so much surprise. The ending kind of surprised me. I love how they ended it. It ended on a happy note, which when you watch it, you're like, how's this going to end on any kind of note except for this guy's going to go to jail for a long time. But they actually found a really good way to do the storyline, that because the very very first scene in the movie is him going to jail, so you're like, oh, he's going to go to jail, and then the whole movie is kind of this backstory of like what happened, how he got to jail. Anyways, but yeah, I mostly enjoyed it. I think it's a fun watch. If you ever watch anything with Rowan Atkinson, if you like some silly British humor, I mean, I thought it was a good show, Man vs. Bee. uh, I recommend. All right, I'm going to talk about a Disney Plus kind of special. It's called The Beauty and the Beast 30th Anniversary, which I get think it was maybe on ABC as well, but I found on Disney Plus this last, you know, maybe in December or something like that. And my Jacob Martin's talked about on his show, in fact, on what he's been watching. Anyways, and I watched it as well, and it's interesting. It was the 30th anniversary. I mean, of Beauty and the Beast, one of the great Disney animation movies, part of the great Disney Renaissance, the first animation movie ever be nominated for Best Picture. I think back in ~91. So a very historical movie in that sense, and very beloved by anybody that likes Disney animation. Of course, it was a great story of loving somebody that's not attractive and doesn't look looks like it's a beast, and loving somebody for their personality, has that whole idea behind it, and finding love, and some great songs, of course, Beauty and the Beast and Be Our Guest. I love Gaston. The Gaston song is so great, and the very first song, or, I'm not sure what it's called, but where Belle's going through the town. So much great music, and of course, Menken, and I think Ash is the other guy's name that did the musical. Uh, it's kind of, and it's the special that was kind of a celebrating Beauty and the Beast, and they talked to different people like that had something to do with Beauty and the Beast. And then there's also they were doing kind of this mixture of live theater where they had uh, this this musician, this artist named Her, which I'm not real familiar with, except I think she won the Oscar for Best Song last year, which I never heard of her then either. And I didn't like the song that she sang last year, but I guess she's probably a big artist that I know nothing about. But she was Belle. Uh, Josh Groban was the Beast, which I'm a big fan of Josh Groban. Love his voice, so love seeing him being the Beast in this. When they did the live action, he had Martin Short as the Candlestick, and David Allen Greer was Cogsworth, the clock, anyways. And Shania Twain was Mrs. Potts, which I agree with Jacob Martin. It was kind of maybe the most miscast of the whole musical that they did. And I don't know who the guy who played Gaston. The guy who played Gaston did an amazing job, but it was cool to see the theatrical kind of when they were kind of in the audience. They're from the audience and they're doing the music, and I enjoyed that. But then they would cut away to the actual movie, to the animation movie Beauty and the Beast. And to me, it was kind of weird because it was like, all right, I thought it was just gonna be all theatrical. Like I'm gonna see like a live musical theater, which I thought was be cool because I never really seen Beauty and the Beast as a musical theater kind of thing. And so I wanted to see just everything done through that. But they kept cutting to the actual movie for scenes, and I'm like, okay, like I can watch, Beauty and the Beast on Disney Plus, or I can watch it on Blu-ray or something. Like I don't need to watch it on the special. I thought the whole cool thing about the special was that we're seeing it live. And so every time they cut to the movie, I actually kind of fast forwarded it because I was like, I don't need to watch the actual movie. I can watch the movie anytime. I'm watching the special because it's doing something different. Anyway, so I don't know. I wish they wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have cut to the actual movie and just done it theatrical, because you can see something different, how and different interpretation of the musical. Anyways, but yeah, Josh Groban, great. I love he sings the is it Nevermore or something like that? It came out of the live action Beauty and the Beast. Of course, amazing voice. At the very end, Josh Groban and Belle and Her, who played Belle, they sing the Beauty and the Beast song. Really great performance from those two. I really enjoyed that. So overall, it was a very enjoyable special. I think I just fast forward through the actual movie parts and just watched the theatrical parts myself. Anyway, so I don't know if anybody else watched that or saw that was out, but you know, it's hard if you're a fan of Disney animation. Beauty and the Beast is one of the greats. So um, I'd like to see if they did one for like family. I'd like to see one for like Aladdin. Love to see one for Lion King. Hope they do more specials like this, because I love those old the Renaissance animation movies. Anyway, so yeah, it's Beauty and the Beast, the 30th anniversary. Um, I'm getting there. I'm almost towards the end here. um, I want to talk about Zootopia Plus, which was a show on Disney Plus. Really good, kind of full of the movie Zootopia, and this was like 6 shorts, I want to say, taking place in the Zootopia world. It kind of takes place during the movie, but it was like scenes that weren't in the movie that they kind of play out. And I really enjoyed this Zootopia. I love Zootopia, one of my favorite Disney animation movies. And this was really, these shorts were actually really fun. And they take place, like I said, in the world. I love the very first episode. I'm forgetting names, but the main bunnies, her parents are they forgot something, so they're like trying to track down the train because they forgot to give their daughter something, and it's really fun. Those two characters actually, I love about the show is that it takes all the side characters, which actually are pretty fun, and kind of explores like what they did. Like there's an episode that deals with there's kind of this there's these little like I don't know, they're like mouse kind of creatures. Um, and there's like a Godfather. They have the patriarch is like Godfather from the Godfather movies. He's kind of, it's like he runs a mafia, and and in the movie his daughter gets married, and there's a whole storyline, in the movie where she saves the daughter, gets robbed and she saves her, and then later on it helps her get saved when she gets captured by the mafia, but then she gets out because she helped out the daughter. I don't know if this is making sense, but I'm just saying that's what happens in the movie. And so the show, there's this whole sequence of her getting ready for the wedding, and it plays like the Desperate Housewives or something like that. So they play it like a reality show, like Desperate Housewives, with her getting ready for her wedding, and there's all this drama with her and like her cousin. And anyways, it was real fun. The best episode probably is the last episode where we get my favorite character, Flash, uh, um, the DMV worker who's a sloth. So he's very slow. He talks very slow. And there's this whole sequence where he's out on a date at a restaurant, and the waiter is trying to get done with their shift because they want to go to this concert. But they have to serve the sloths, Flash and his girlfriend. And of course, they're trying to hurry it up, but they're going very slow. Like, here's the menu, and they're taking a very long time trying to come up with something, and then they're like, how about, and they're trying to guess, what do you want, this, because they're trying to hurry the sloths. Love that character, and very funny the way, and it kind of ends with the ending of the movie, in fact, and plays into the end of the movie Zootopia. So anyways, really liked Zootopia Plus. I thought it was a really cool show. I love to see more of that kind of stuff. Some of my favorite animation shows in Disney, and the behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, but it's kind of some scenes that didn't happen in the movie. And there's some great characters there. So yeah, I love Zootopia Plus. Came very close to getting to my top 10 favorite TV shows of the year. In fact, it kind of just barely missed out. But yeah, really good. All right, I feel like it's time to talk about two movies that come together. First one's Knives Out. Second one is Glass Onion and Knives Out Story. I guess I'll talk about those two because I watched those two just recently. Yeah, I haven't seen Knives Out until just because Glass Onion came on Netflix, so I thought, I guess I'll watch Glass Onion. I have kind of this hate relationship with Rian Johnson because I thought The Last Jedi was so horrible and it just ruined Star Wars for me that I like have a vendetta against Rian Johnson. I've said that before on Mike's channel. Did you see that's channel? That I almost don't want to watch any Rian Johnson movies anymore because I'm just like, I just don't like the guy because he just did such a horrible job with The Last Jedi. And it's such a disappointment when I watched that in the movie theater. So I kind of go out of my way not to watch Rian Johnson movies. So when Knives Out came out, I remember, I don't know how many years ago that was, I didn't watch it because I was like, I'm not watching a Rian Johnson movie. But everybody was like, oh, you got to give him another chance. You got to give him another chance. And Glass Onion was on Netflix. And since I have a YouTube channel where I talk about movies, I was like, I guess I'll watch Glass Onion because it's so convenient to watch. And everybody's talking about it. And so, I want to be in the conversation of movies and TV shows that people talk about. That's why I got the YouTube channel, because I love talking about what's popular, what's out there. So I first watched Knives Out. Overall, I wasn't a fan of Knives Out. Everybody says everybody really liked Knives Out, and in fact, everybody says Knives Out is better than Glass Onion. I actually like Glass Onion quite a bit better than Knives Out. Knives Out, the main thing was I just didn't think it was that funny of a show. I thought, and the mystery part didn't really interest me that much. And I think there's a problem with doing a mystery movie. I don't know if they work so well anymore because we have so many great mystery TV shows out there. Like I'm like I can watch CSI or NCIS and get a really good murder mystery out of it, and tons of other shows. There's tons of other, these kind of murder mystery shows out there with police and stuff. There's Bones. Castle is probably my favorite. I love the Castle, that TV show. And there's tons of others. There's the Law and Order. There's, Victims or I forget. But anyways, there's all these different murder mystery shows that you can watch on a daily basis that have great murder mystery storylines. So anytime I'm watching a movie with a murder mystery storyline, I'm just like okay, like I can watch this on TV at any time. Like the murder mystery doesn't excite me. The only thing that makes a movie like that interesting is if you have interesting characters, if it's comedic maybe, or if there's good action in it. If you provide something else besides the murder mystery that can elevate it, I don't think murder mysteries work that well. Like I was thinking, I saw one this last year called "See How They Run," and I thought it was one of the worst movies of the year in my opinion. And it was this murder mystery with Sam Rockwell, and the mystery didn't really work that well, and I didn't really care about the characters. It was boring, and it just wasn't funny, even though it tried to be, and so it didn't work. And I know they've done some Agatha Christie ones, the Murder on the Orient Express and Death of the Nile. I haven't seen either one, so I can't comment too much on those. But I don't know if those have done that well. And then now you got the Knives Out is kind of this new murder mystery series. It seems like that Ryan Johnson's doing, and it's done fairly well. But again, to me, I'm like, I don't care about the murder mystery part of it. I just not that it just doesn't excite me or interest me. And so with Knives Out, I just didn't think it was funny. I didn't like the characters. It had a good cast of characters, but at the end, I was like, I don't care for any of these characters. None really interested me. Uh, um, and I don't know. I just was not interested in the story at all. And when it came about who did it and everything, and I kind of knew who did it. And when they revealed everything, it was like, okay. And I didn't like, I thought it was weird. There's this whole storyline of the, what's Anna de Armas, isn't it? I think the maid, whatever, or the nurse, took care of, the guy that dies. This whole thing with her, that when she lies, she throws up, and that's like her tell. So if she throws up, then she's lying, because I guess she can't tell a lie. It makes her sick to her stomach, and so that's how they figure out who the killer is. They kind of use that in there, and I always thought that's very, I don't know, that's a weird, kind of unrealistic thing. I don't know if that exists. Someone throwing up that much because they lie. I don't know. I didn't care for that story aspect of it. I don't know. I just was not a fan. Like, it wasn't a terrible movie. I'd give like 2.5 stars, so which is a light not recommend. So it wasn't terrible. Didn't hate it. Better than Last Jedi, but I wasn't on board as much as other people on Knives Out. So I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of it. So I'm still kind of on this I don't like Ryan Johnson kind of thing. Anyway, so I went to Glass Onion, kind of not expecting much out of it. But overall, I actually quite enjoyed Glass Onion. And I think it's because I laughed quite a bit. I thought it was a funny movie. I thought the script was much funnier. And most because I like the character. Again, another good cast of characters. You got Edward Norton as kind of this billionaire jerk character. And he invites all his friends to do like a murder mystery kind of thing, which was interesting. And he had some great, like, my favorite maybe was Dave Bautista, who plays like a YouTuber or a Twitch guy who has subscribers, and he's kind of out there kind of character. And I thought Bautista was really funny, and I think Bautista's like killing it, which is weird in comedy because he's this big guy. He's actually obviously good at action because he's a former professional wrestler. He's always been the super jacked guy who's probably like 6'5" or something like that. And so he looks good in action. He's good as a bad villain. He was a villain in Spectre, James Bond movie. So he's kind of the perfect villain type character. But man, he's doing really good in comedy with Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He's actually been pretty funny in all those. I thought he was really funny in the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. Um, so yeah, and he was really funny in this movie as well. I really enjoyed his character. But you had Catherine Hahn, who's been doing really good work lately, of course, in the WandaVision TV shows, Agatha, and so she's pretty high right now. Pretty, pretty. She's doing really well right now because of that, I think. And she has her own show coming out, I think, this year. But yeah, I like Catherine Hahn. She's very funny. Kate Hudson, uh, was good as well. Oscar-nominated actress. Leslie Odom Jr., really great singer and actor as well. Doesn't do a lot in this movie, but still a great cast overall. And I don't know if I'm probably forgetting somebody. Oh, Janelle Monáe, who gave a really good performance. Yeah, I can't say much about her character without spoiling it, but Janelle Monáe definitely was the highlight of the movie as well. Who is from Kansas, may I add? Yeah, so always like to promote a good Kansan like Janelle Monáe. And of course, you got Daniel Craig as the lead, as this kind of great detective. He's considered the greatest detective in this universe, and he's got this like crazy Southern accent. Of course, Daniel Craig's English. Anyways, it's kind of playing against character of like his James Bond tough guy things, and he's this kind of funny, mysterious detective who's unorthodox, I guess, in some ways, but very smart and really good at solving murders and stuff. And really love that character actually in this one much more than Knives Out again. I thought he was much funnier in this one. He had some good. There's some good. I talked on Mike's Did You See That channel. Loved the costuming. He has this really funny like. They go swimming and he has like this like I don't know what you call it, jumper or whatever. I don't know what you call it. It's like shorts and a t-shirt, kind of old style swimsuit that he goes into the pool with. Was like that's a weird choice, but very funny. But yeah, and it's again the murder mystery part is my least interested part of the whole movie. When someone dies and they're trying to figure out who the murderer is, and then how they figure out who the murderer is was not that interesting, and how the movie ends, I think, was not a very good ending. I would say overall, and I don't really understand what was going on at the end. So I wish that was done better. But again, the murder mystery part wasn't the interesting part to me. To me, it was a fun movie. I love the island setting. This billionaire owns his own island, and he has this. It's called Glass the Onion because he has this building that looks like it's made out of glass and it looks like an onion. That's why they call it Glass Onion. On this island, anyways, that he owns, and he owns like or he doesn't own it, but he's like renting out the Mona Lisa. So he's got just crazy money, which is kind of fun to see. Somebody that has that kind of money and can do anything, and there's some good, and he has some funny cameo endorsements from celebrities as well in it. But yeah, overall, I'd give it 3.5 stars. I thought it was actually a solid, I think there's some plot holes in the movie, and I think the murder mystery part doesn't work at all. But just as a fun movie, I thought it was actually a really fun movie, and I expected to hate this movie. And so it kind of surprised me when I watched Glass Onion. I was like, you know what? I actually kind of enjoyed this movie. So Rian Johnson, you made a decent movie. I have to give it to you. There's hope for you. I guess maybe you can make a good movie out there. I'm still not a big Rian Johnson fan, but maybe I'll watch. If he makes another one of these, I'll watch it, just see what he does. Just stay away from Star Wars is all I would say about Rian Johnson. So yeah, good review there for Glass Onion. All right, I'll go to a movie I watched recently that I actually kind of enjoyed. It came out in like 2020 or something like that, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. It's called The Guilty, which is a movie I never heard of. Don't know if it came out in theaters, but I caught it on Netflix recently. It's a remake of a Swedish movie, I want to say, or Switzerland movie, which I didn't know about, but it's called The Guilty. Jake Gyllenhaal plays a 911 operator. You call 911 in the United States. I don't know about England and other places, but if something happens, a crime is committed or whatever, or anything, you call 911 and talk to a 911 operator, and they get police over to you, or firefighters, or ambulance, whatever is needed. And so he plays a kind of, he's a cop, but he's a 911 operator, and he's, getting, and it starts out, he's getting his calls, and the whole movie takes place at this one building, and it never leaves this building, which was interesting. I've never seen a movie kind of really that does it that way. Uh, he's the whole movie is him on a phone basically talking to people, and it all revolves around he gets a call from a woman who says she's been kidnapped, and so he's trying to help her out, and he kind of gets him involved in the whole thing, and he kind of goes above and beyond, trying to figure out how to save this woman from being kidnapped, and tries calls other cops to try to help them investigate, and they're like, no, this is against the rules, we can't investigate. And the whole thing takes place like in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is like on fire throughout the whole movie. Like there's a big forest fire or something like that, and like so the town is on fire, so all the police are like already busy with this whole fire thing and trying to save people from the fire, that he doesn't have any resources, and yet he really wants to save this woman who's being kidnapped, and he keeps calling her and talking to her on the phone, and she has to pretend like she's talking to her daughter to not, let the kidnapper know that she's talking to a 911 operator. So it's a very tense thriller. I thought, and it was very interesting just seeing it, not seeing stuff actually happen, but just seeing Jake Gyllenhaal, talking to people on the phone and his reactions. And Gyllenhaal gives a really good performance. I think he's one of the best actors out there today. As Mike said, Jake Gyllenhaal was in Strange World. He was the voice of the main character. Always like seeing him in a movie, though I didn't like him so much in Ambulance. Wasn't a movie I enjoyed too much, but I thought he was really good in The Guilty. He played it very tense. He maybe played it a little too tense. He yells a lot in the movie, and I heard a lot of criticism that he kind of overacts a little bit. But overall, I thought it was actually a really good performance, and he really kind of, because the whole movie is Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, he has to carry the whole movie because there's a couple other characters within the building that he's working with, in this 911, building, whatever, operator building. And so, but there's not a lot of characters in there. It's really just Jake. And there, I mean, most of it's through the phone, so you can hear people's voices. So a lot of the acting is through voice acting, except for Jake Gyllenhaal. The camera's on him the whole time, and a lot of close up of his face. And so he really carries the movie with his acting, which I thought was really cool. And it was a cool thriller, I thought, where you're on, you're kind of tense because you're like, oh, is he going to save this woman? And then you find out she has a daughter and a son that's a baby that's at home, and so he's trying to get someone to go over there to help them. And then he calls the kidnapper and talks to the kidnapper, and so, and yeah, it carries. You think, how did he carry a whole movie? But somehow they carried a whole hour and a half movie or whatever it was. And there's actually, I won't say what, of course, and maybe I shouldn't say anything, but there is a twist that happens towards the later half of the movie, the third act of the movie, that just floored me, that I didn't expect. And there's a twist that happens, and you're like, wow, I did not see that coming. And it really kind of shocking. One of the most shocking twists I've seen in a movie that really caught me off guard and made it even more interesting of a show and kept me glued to the storyline. So I actually really recommend The Guilty. I thought if you ever catch on Netflix, I thought it was a really good thriller if you like that kind of movies, and really good performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. All right, I got 3 more movies to talk about, and I'll be ending and this is why I have to do a live stream, because I just had so many things I want to talk about that I couldn't fit in a 20 minutes video. So here I'm at an hour and a half. I got about 3 more movies to talk about. Uh, one I'll talk about was a movie that was nominated for Best Picture last year, and it was called Belfast, directed by Kenneth Branagh, who's a great British actor who did a lot of Shakespeare stuff. He was on Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Played Professor Gilderoy. He was the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor in that movie, which is very funny in that. Of course, he directed Thor, the very first Thor movie. And so he does a lot of directing and some acting here and there. He's been nominated before. He's a really good actor. And he's been doing a lot of directing. And so Belfast is a movie he directed. Takes place, I'm forgetting what period, but I don't know, it's kind of a period piece, and it takes place in Belfast, Ireland. And it's kind of almost a biographical movie, I think, because Kenneth Branagh grew up in Belfast, Ireland during And I don't know the history. If anybody out there can tell me, I know there was fighting between the Catholics and the Protestants, I believe, in Ireland. And I know there's a big thing about Northern Ireland. I think it was Protestant, and Ireland is Catholic, of course. And so I don't know why there was fighting between Northern Ireland and Ireland, or three. I don't know why there's fighting between the Catholics and the Protestants, but I don't know, two religions. I guess that didn't work out or didn't fit in together. But it kind of covers like this. It's this kid. I can't remember. The main character is this boy. Like, I don't know if he's 10 years old or something, and he's living in Belfast, and he's kind of seeing these violence, these riots go on in his town, anyways. And it's about the family and like, what they're gonna do. He, like, he has, I think, a sister, and he has his parents, and he has like grandparents that live there, and they're talking about, should they move away from the violence or do they stay, because that's where their family's from, is Belfast. Anyway, so being from America, like, I don't quite understand all of the politics of that or what exactly is going on there. Except, it seems like every time I see a movie about Ireland, there's always some rioting. There's always this whole, conflict between I think, the Catholics and Protestants. Anyway, so even in Banshees and Sharon, they kind of allude to the violence that's going on, because that play takes place in Ireland too. And I'm always like, why can't I watch a movie about Ireland where I don't have to watch about riots and infighting? It seems like every time I watch a movie about Ireland, like I just want a good Irish story, like The Quiet Man or something like that, where it's about, romance, or because Ireland's so beautiful. I love movies that take place in Ireland. It's such a cool place. I'd love to visit sometime. But it's always about this whole conflict thing that happened, which was a big deal because they still talk about it today and still has some probably emotional moments if you're from that area. But anyway, so that's why the movie's kind of about that. Overall, it was a really boring movie. I mean, it was painstakingly boring. It's in kind of black. It's in black and white. The whole movie, and yeah, and the story just was not that interesting. It follows this boy, which I don't really care about movies that follow like a kid around. Like, I'm more interested in what the adults are doing, because I'm an adult now, or have been for a while. But yeah, it was just, and I don't know, it just kind of ends, and there's a riot, and they leave at the end, kind of thing. And I don't know, I just didn't get interested in the story at all, or the characters, or, like I said, it was just so slow moving and boring. It was just so hard to get through. Yeah, it's one of the worst movies I saw from the last year. I would say it's up there. I'm sorry, there's nothing. I can't really think of anything real positive to say except for the beginning. I liked it. Began where they showcased Belfast in modern day, and they played this Van Morrison song, which I quite enjoyed, which was nominated for best song. And it was cool Van Morrison song that they played, that he wrote for the movie, because he's also from Belfast, Van Morrison. And they did like they it was almost like let's see what Belfast looks like today, and it was really beautiful the way they went, and it was in color, and they went across Belfast, and you're like, wow, Belfast is like really cool looking. And that's like the whole opening, and then they go to this wall, and it goes above this wall, and when it goes above the wall, all of a sudden everything turns into black and white. And I was like, that was such a cool beginning. I have to admit, like, I enjoyed the kind of like Banshees of Inisherin. I love the beginning of Banshees of Inisherin because uh, Ireland's so beautiful. But then once you get to the story, it's like, oh, this is not good. So I wish they would come up with a good storyline and showcase Ireland better. But yeah, Belfast, another just snooze fest of a movie. And it's funny because it was nominated for Best Picture. It was like one of the front runners. I think Kenneth Branagh won Oscar for Best original screenplay, maybe. I believe he won an Oscar. He was also nominated for Best Director. I think got a lot of supporting actor and actress nominations. Um, anyway, so it was very well done. I mean, it was very well perceived amongst critics, and it got a lot of award nominations and some wins. And so that's why I watched it, just because, like, okay, I want to see what the hype is about this movie. And I watched it, and it was like, nah, it's another boring movie that gets nominated for Best Picture. Like, Best Pictures are almost always really terrible movies, and this just proves more to me that almost all the movies that were nominated for Best Picture last year were horrible. Like, I thought it was a really horrible award season last year. This year is pretty bad too. I don't like the movies that are nominated this year as much either, but that's just what it is. The movies that I don't like they win Best Picture. Movies I like never get nominated for Best Picture anymore. but that's just the way it goes. I know Mike watched it. We talked back on forth on Letterboxd, but he was the same way as me. Yeah, wasn't a huge fan. The kid actor was great and very funny, but boring movie overall. So I always say movies are boring. That's my big thing. I it's pretty easy for me to watch a movie and go, man, this is slow paced and boring. I like a little faster paced movies with more interesting things going on and just a really more interesting story. And so many of them are just not that. And even Mike says it's boring. So if Mike says it's boring, then it's boring because Mike is a little, I don't know what to say. Mike is a little nicer to movies than I am, I feel like, and gives them maybe more of the benefit of the doubt than I do. But yeah, Belfast, I would recommend not watching that movie unless you want to watch all the best pictures like I do, which is unfortunate. All right, two more movies left to talk about. One is called an animation movie that was pretty well received. It's an A24 movie, which I don't watch a lot of A24. I'm not a fan of A24, but this one's called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Very interesting title. I know Ryan, it was in Ryan's RWR movies, top 10 movies of the year. So he really liked it. I feel like most anybody who watches this movie gives it pretty positive reviews. It's a very interesting movie. As it says in the title, it's about this shell, about this little tiny shell named Marcel, who can talk and have conversations, and so it's this very fantasy kind of idea that inanimate objects are talking anyways, and there's other inanimate objects throughout the movie that talk and have personality. So it's a really weird kind of fantasy world. It takes place in the real world, but yet we get this fantastical element of inanimate objects talking. And so we got Marcel the Shell, who has shoes. That's why it's called. She has shoes on. She walks around, and she lives in this house with her grandma. The owners left, and a lot of her family left, I guess. So it's just her and her grandma. So it's weird. She has parents and stuff like that, but they all, I guess, left with the family that left. And so now the place is a rental. And so this guy rents this house, and he discovers there's a shell that talks, and he's not freaked out about it. And so in fact, he makes a documentary basically. And it's a movie where the main guy is like a documentarian who's documenting that there's this shell that talks named Marcel. And nobody's freaked out throughout the whole movie that there's inanimate objects that are talking and have personalities. And so that's always weird. I always find that always weird. Like I would freak out if the shell started talking, or if my watch started talking, if my bottle of water started talking to me. I would freak the hell out and get the hell out of there. So it's always weird to me when people aren't freaked out about things like that. The one thing I say about Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio that's accurate is that when Pinocchio shows up at the church, everybody freaks out because it's this walking, talking puppet. And they're like, it's demon possessed. And I'm like, that's the most realistic part of that movie. Where I'm like, yeah, people would freak out if a wooden puppet started talking. But yeah, so anyway, but yeah, Marcel. Anyway, so he documents her and kind of, and it's about him trying to find her family. Basically, she's trying to connect back with like family members that left or something. And there's of course there's a emotional element that her grandma is old and she's taking care of her grandma and all this, who also talks and of course and all that. But the interesting thing about the movie is the character Marcel, who played by Jenny Slate, who has a really distinct voice, but yet her voice sounds. I thought it was a kid actor doing, because it sounds like a kid. It's this very cutie kitty voice, and I didn't realize it's Jenny Slate, who's a very good voice actress, maybe one of the best out there. She does a lot of good. She's in Zootopia. She's in what's it called? There's that pet movie about pets that she does voice work for. She's a very funny actress. I like her actually quite a bit. Came out Saturday Night Live as well. But she does voice of Marcel, and the director, I guess, when I did research, the director of the movie was married to Jenny Slate, and they got divorced while making this movie because the movie took like 5 years to make or something. It started as a short. They did a short, and then they developed into a full-length film, and it's considered a animation, except because the Marcel is an animated character, basically like a 3D animated character, but then there's humans, just regular people. So it's hard to call it an animation movie because not everything's animated. It's the whole house is not animated. She's in like a real house, but it's an animated character that they somehow, I don't know how they did how they shot it, but they had, so it's like animation, but it's really just because the character's animated, but everything around her is not animated. Um, but yeah. Um, so yeah, Marcel, uh, anyways, so yeah, so it's interesting when they started this. They were married when they started the movie, but then they got divorced during it. So it's kind of interesting. And the movie deals with divorce a little bit because the main actor, the guy who plays the documentarian, is like going through or just went through a divorce or something. So they do talk about that. So it's interesting that they were able to work together through this whole process. Anyways, that's just behind the scenes. But for the movie itself, like I really loved like the first 15 minutes of the movie. Actually, really funny. The Marcel character is a very cute character, like, and the way she talks and some of the lines she says is actually pretty funny. And because it's not written like it's written just like this is a real person or whatever you want to call it, a real shell that talks and has her own personality, and their conversations don't feel like a movie conversation. It feels like real conversation that they're having. So I think it's very written very well in that way, like very conversational and like not like a movie line. Feels like it feels like she's not reading from a script, that she's just, you know, improvising. And I don't know how much of there's improvising. I think it was all the script, but they did a really good job of making it feel like it was real, like a real conversation that this guy's having with a shell. And Marcel is such a great character. I have to admit, I really fell in love with the character. And it's the reason to watch this movie at all is because Marcel is such a cute character and makes you laugh quite a bit. I would say I like the first 15 minutes mostly because it was such a unique kind of character and movie style. But after about 15 minutes, I got kind of tired of the movie and the character because she talks this very kitty, cutie voice that kind of, at first, is kind of, okay, this is kind of cool. And after 15 minutes, you're like, okay, I'm getting kind of tired of this voice and the way she talks. And the story, there's really not much of a plot. The main problem with the movie to me is that it lacks really a very good plot or story. It's just, a lot of it's just, we're just seeing every day of this Marcel Shell character and what she does in the house and different things. And there's some cutie things like she gets honey out. And what the only thing I understand is they carry things, but they don't have hands. But like the grandma's always outside doing like a yard, like has a garden. She's always tilling her garden. But I'm like, the shell doesn't have hands. How is she carrying things? I don't get it. But Michelle, she dumps over like this honey and she walks on it, and the sticky honey allows her to walk up walls. I thought that was kind of a cute idea. I like that kind of stuff. But overall, it was just the story it didn't need a hour and a half storyline. I felt like this could only work as a short, like this could work as a 30-minute short movie maybe, but an hour and a half, it just didn't have enough story to carry the whole movie. And the character, though I liked it, and like I said, there wasn't a lot of characters in the movie, but just following this one character throughout the movie wasn't enough for me to really keep interested. I kind of got bored with the movie and kind of got tired of the character. Even though I said I do like the character, but yeah, I did kind of get tired of it after a while, listen to that voice all the time. And it kind of ends on a good note, though. The ending was pretty good. So I give this like a 2.5 out of 5 stars, like a light not recommend. I hate saying that because like I wanted to like this movie, but overall, it's not a movie I'd ever watch again or I could recommend to people. But a lot of people like the movie, so it's definitely something to maybe check out if you ever come across Marcel the Shell Shoes On. I think kids would love it. It definitely, I think if I was a kid, I would absolutely love this movie. And I think if you have kids, definitely have them watch it because it's very cutie, kiddie kind of style that I think kids would love anyway. So that's my Marcel the Shell Shoes On. Not quite good enough for me to recommend, but not a bad movie either. It's kind of just in the middle there for me. All right, so I got one more movie to talk about. I kept this for the end, and because it's my maybe hottest take of the whole what I've been watching, which I'm going an hour and 45 minutes here. I know it's taking a lot. Like I said, I needed a lot of time to talk about all this stuff that I've watched, and hopefully next time I won't have this many movies to talk about. This is quite a bit for me, but the last movie I'm going to talk about is a movie called The Menu. I remember when The Menu kind of came out of nowhere. I'd never heard of this movie, and all of a sudden people were talking about, oh, I'm so excited for the menu. I'm like, menu, what is that? And then I caught the trailer. This, it came out this last year, just not too long ago, just like probably in December or something. Uh, and or maybe in November, I can't remember. But I remember the watching the trailer. I'm like, okay, it's like this thriller where this chef, the chef played by Ray Fiennes, is like gets all these food critics into this, restaurant, this like on this island, this very rare restaurant to get to, and then starts killing them or something like that. So it's like, okay, so it's like this thriller with this psychopath chef trying to kill people. Okay, like it doesn't really interest me. Just watching the trailer, I was like, okay, this doesn't look that interesting. Nothing in it really. Like I'm like, okay, I need. And then I didn't know it was like, is it a horror movie? Is it a thriller? I didn't quite understand what exactly the movie was, and everybody was excited about it though. And so I was like, okay. And then as people watch that, it's gotten pretty good reviews. A lot of people are putting in their top 10 favorite movies of the year, and so I was like kind of intrigued. I didn't know how violent it was. Like, is it horror movie violence or is it just thriller movie violence? Which I'm okay with that. If it's a thriller, I'm like, okay, I can sit through it. And so what I got from it, it was seemed like more of a thriller than a horror. So when I saw it come on, on HBO Max, I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. Everybody seems to like it. And so I watched the menu, and man, I really hated this movie. Like, it was one of the worst movies of the year. I did my top worst movies already before I watched this movie, and so it's not in my top. I didn't have it in my top 10 worst movies of the year. But if I redid my top 10 worst movies of the year, the menu would probably be like number 4 or 5 on my list. It was, yeah, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Absolutely hated it. Was angry. It was one of those movies that afterwards I'm just like angry because I thought it was so stupid of a movie. And people love this movie, and I hate saying that, but it's like I just thought it was so stupid, and I didn't get it. What people liked about it. The whole movie is, yeah, Ray Fiennes is this famous chef. He invites all these people onto this island. He has this thing. He has a restaurant on an island, so you have to. So it's very secluded, which is a good place for like a murder thriller. So everybody has to get on a boat and come to this island. And most everybody, there's like, food critics, there's just foodies, people that are rich. They're all pretty wealthy though. It's all about like the wealth class, like that loves food. And there's celebrities, all these kind of people that come to this island to try this chef's food, that's very, high class, it's like a Gordon Ramsay type, character. And I would just say the food looks pretty good. Like, I like the when he's making food, and like that's kind of cool. But he has this whole, chefs. Of course, he has all these chefs that work under him, and he has like a sommelier, and he has like this one lady who's kind of the house manager, I guess. Um, well, there's one character, Anna Taylor-Joy's character, who I don't know what she is. I don't know if she's a prostitute or she gets hired to go on a date with this guy because he needs a date with him. I guess his date that he had, they broke up or something. So he needed somebody to go with him on this, to this restaurant. So he hires her. So I don't quite understand if she's a prostitute or something, but he hires her to go with him to this, and she doesn't really care about it, but she's being paid, and she's anyways trying and kind of pretending to be like his girlfriend or whatever. Anyway, so she's kind of this outsider that comes into this world, and everybody's like this big food people, that are very critical. Anyway, so they sit down in this restaurant, and at first it's just like a regular restaurant. They're getting served different courses of the meal, and we're having different conversations. And then all of a sudden it kind of starts getting a little weirder and a little weirder. And of course, I know what's going to happen. I know that this guy's going to be kind of a psychopath killer or something. So I'm waiting for something really crazy to happen. And then finally some crazy stuff starts happening, and somebody like shoots themselves, and they're like, oh my God, a guy committed suicide for no reason, it seems like. And everybody's kind of like panicked, like what's going on? There's something crazy going on here. And then another guy gets like his finger chopped off because he tries to leave, and they chop his finger off. And so they're like, okay, stuff is going down. This guy's a psychopath. All these chefs are psychopaths. Everybody that works at the restaurant's a psychopath. and we're on an island and we can't escape. So it's a good setting for that. But so I'm like, okay, so I'm expecting everybody to be like, okay, we got to figure a way to get out of here. We got to figure a way to fight back. But it's like, no, everybody just sits and takes it. And the chef is even like, oh, you're all going to die tonight. And everybody's like, oh my God, we're going to die tonight. But nobody like tries to escape, basically. I mean, maybe a couple times, but not really that. They didn't try that hard, I felt like, to escape or even to fight back. And I don't understand what makes me mad is that's what makes me mad. The whole time I'm yelling at the screen, like, fight back, try to escape, do something. Just don't sit there and take it and accept that you're going to be murdered. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It just enraged me throughout the whole movie. I'm just like, I don't get these choices at all of these characters. And why are they like, I'm thinking if it was me and they're like, oh, you're in the restaurant, we're locking the door or something like that, you can't get out and we're going to kill all of you. And you see some people get killed. And I'd be like, I'm thinking I'm grabbing one of the chairs and I'm just going to start whacking people with the chair, or, and maybe I'll get killed. Okay. But I'm not just going to sit there and accept that I'm going to get murdered. I'm going to try to fight back in some way. Especially the Ray Fiennes character. He's just walking around and he's like, for like, saying, whatever, why he's doing it. And I'm thinking like, man, I would grab a chair and hit that guy in the back of the head. He's the head honcho. He's just walking out. He doesn't have a weapon. Nobody has weapons. Maybe they have some knives because they're back in the kitchen cutting things. But like nobody has a gun. Nobody has a gun to my head. Nobody has any. I don't see people like we're not getting attacked by knives or whatever. So I'm like, why doesn't all the guys, at least, not everybody, just get together and be like, okay, we're going to get our chairs and we're just going to start whacking people. And maybe we'll die on this island, but we're not going to die without fighting for our lives and trying to take out as many people as we can. That would be the smart thing to do, or try to get together and figure out a way to escape the island. But for everybody to just sit there and be like, oh my God, we're going to all die. It was the stupidest thing, stupidest plot. One of the stupidest plots I've ever seen in the movie. Just one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. And I don't understand why the chef wants to kill everybody, except that he hates critics, I guess, because he's a chef and he hates these people because they criticize his food. But it's like this guy's been a chef probably for a long time. He's a Gordon Ramsay type guy. He probably gets criticism his whole life. Why does he all of a sudden go bananas and starts like murdering? And not only murders everybody, but they all commit suicide. I'm gonna spoil the movie, but like all the chefs, they all commit suicide at the end. So it's like this guy, why would he be a famous chef? He loves cooking, and then he just goes bonkers. He decides he's going to kill all these people in a room because they're critical, and he's also going to kill himself. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what is his motivation? I don't get any of it. Why he decided to do what he did. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Not only that, but he has like this whole team of chefs, and they're all willing to kill themselves. Who are these psychopath chefs? And I don't get, how do you get this many psychopath chefs together in one room that are all willing to murder without any remorse and are willing to kill themselves? It makes absolutely no sense. It's just so infuriating watching the movie and going, none of this makes sense. It's so stupid. And of course, the main character, I'm thinking it's a thriller or something. Okay, the main character is going to escape and they're going to chase after her. She's the only one that kind of fights back and tries to, figure a way out. And she does eventually. And I don't even understand how she escapes. She tells the chef, because she finds out the chef started out as making burgers. And so she asks for a cheeseburger. And I guess he's like, oh, cheeseburger. Like, I used to make cheeseburgers. And so he lets her go and kills everybody else. And I'm spoiling the movie. I'm sorry, but it's just so stupid. And so she survives, which is great. I'm like, I want somebody to survive. So it's like, okay, the main character survived. That's good, I guess. But everybody else just takes it. Everybody just sits there and gets killed. And you're like, what are you doing? I don't get this is not realistic at all. I just hated it so much. I can't wait going, I don't understand. People love this movie. I thought it was so stupid. I even said on somebody's channel, like I really didn't like this movie. It didn't make any sense and all this. And they said, well, it's a satire. It doesn't need to make sense. I'm like, okay, I guess I didn't get the satire of the movie. And I don't know what that is. I kind of thought, well, maybe it's, the director saying, oh, because I'm a director and I make art, I hate critics of that criticize my directing. And so I would love to get all the critics together and kill them. I don't know if that's what the director's saying. Like the chef gets all the critics, whatever, together and kills them because, oh, you criticize art. You're not, artists are great people. People that criticize are terrible people. There's always that defiance between the two. Like me, like I don't create art. I do movie criticism, so I'm kind of part of the critics. That I would have died. I've been one of those people that would get killed, I guess, in that situation. Because how dare you criticize art? I don't know if that's what it was saying, or it was talking about rich people. Maybe it was saying, oh, wealthy people are horrible, and so we're gonna kill these wealthy people. I don't know. That was a satire, in which I'm like, I don't hate rich people. I wish I was a rich person, so I had no animosity between against rich people. I don't know. So if there was a satire, I didn't get the satire, didn't get any of what it was going for. So if there's a deeper meaning to it, it didn't reach me. I'm sorry. I suppose people who love it were like, oh, it has this cool, deep meaning to it that I liked. And whatever. If you liked it, that's fine. I may be one of the few, I think I've heard somebody else not like it, but I feel like I'm one of the few ones that's going to come out and say, I did not get this movie, The Menu, and didn't enjoy it at all. And it gets half star, the worst I can give it anyway. So that's the last movie I'm going to talk about. That's my rant. That was my big rant I wanted to do for this watching. Nobody's watching it, so I don't know. Hopefully someone will rewatch this and see that rant and be like, you're crazy, Jason. This was a great movie. You just don't get it. And maybe I didn't. I don't know. But that was me. Anyway, so that's the last movie and what I've been watching. I'm going almost 2 hours. I knew it'd take a while to get through these and to express my opinions, but if anybody's watching, I appreciate it. I'm sorry I went so long. And so thank you to anybody watching this at all and gives me any comments and cares about my opinion. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I won't do a long one like this next time because I just had a lot of movies backed up that I wanted to talk about. But hopefully you got some enjoyment out of anything I said. And I just really appreciate all of you guys supporting me on this channel. And big shout outs to everybody like Mike in the chat, and AJ and Sophie and Garrett, and everybody that showed up. I really appreciate you. And just hope you have a good weekend and take care.